going on, guys? My name is Austin. This is the Bodies in Business podcast. And today's podcast, we're going to talk about dopamine and motivation. And this is actually like the down and dirty version of dopamine and motivation, because I just did a 30-minute long video on dopamine and motivation that deep dives a lot of things. This is just going to be quick hitters and a few stories that hopefully are very impactful for you. So I got a question during a presentation that I was giving a while back, and the guy was like, how do I stay motivated? And I was like, man, that's a great question, because I think for me, a lot of times I stay pretty motivated more often than not. So that really doesn't pop into my head very often. So I wanted to really deep dive how we can stay motivated. And the molecule that is behind all motivation is dopamine. And so how do I stay motivated are through 5 basic things that really drive dopamine production. 1 is sleep, 2 is nutrition, sunlight, movement and exercise, and then great relationships. So those 5 things, I really try to do the best I can in those 5 areas. And from all the research that I've done, watching videos, podcasts, listening to books, those are the 5 things that people should be focusing on in order to optimize your dopamine production. Now, have I always stayed motivated? I think since I was a little kid, I've always been pretty motivated. My mom always tells this story of me when I was really little. I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, maybe even younger. And we were going to this big get together where they were doing a bunch of races and a bunch of push-ups, sit-ups, and all these competitions and stuff where you get ribbons. I don't know. It was in some park. And so she said that all the way there, I was in the back seat of the van and I was saying, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I'm going to win. And I just had this determined look on my face. And then when we got to the race, I lined up to get started. And when the gun went off, I took off and I won the race. My brothers and sisters, my older brother and my older sister actually were running the lap inside the circle with me, which was kind of cool because I still remember them being in the circle. And also my mom's told this story a million times. But it's funny because in the newspaper, somebody took a picture of me running, and then there was 2 kids behind me that were walking and talking with each other. So I took the race very, very seriously and ended up winning. And my mom said on the way home, I was like, I knew I'd win. I knew I'd win. So this is to say that some people, in the research that I've done and listened to, is they say some people have higher levels of baseline dopamine than others. Some people are a little more mellow, or hey, if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. It is what it is. Some people are like, I gotta win. I'm motivated. I knew I'd win. I knew it. That type of person. I feel like I have a good, healthy amount of dopamine in my body. I stay motivated a lot of times, but that's just so everyone has a semi-different level of baseline dopamine in their body. All right. And then I even remember another story when I was little. These are little snippets of my life. If I think back and I'm like, why am I so motivated? And we were doing a jump the brook competition in kindergarten. And it was me and this other kid, and the jumped and didn't get it. And it was really, really wide. And I went back really far. I started running, and I jumped and I made it. And then all these kids rushed around me and picked me up and were hoisting me in the air. Yeah. And so I don't know, when I think about moments like that, I'm like, man, in my subconscious, it's probably you've had moments in your life where you've been super successful. And movement, to be honest, is one of the biggest things. And playing sports, I think, has been a really big contributor for me having a lot of dopamine and motivation in my life. So the 5 habits, I want to go through those one more time, that Andrew Huberman says that you should be focusing on a day-to-day basis. Is sleep, NSDR, which is non-sleep deep rest. I don't really know much about that, but he talks about it. Nutrition, sunlight exposure, and movement and exercise. And then also he talks about how relationships are super important too. But those 5 things are very important. And I mean, in the video that I did that was 30 minutes long, I go into a lot of information about those 5 things. So if you want to check that video out, highly recommend. But in this video, those 5 things you need to focus on, and you can do a lot of research in those areas and understand those a little better. But sleep, you should get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. Nutrition, tyrosine, the amino acid tyrosine is super important in order to make dopamine. So you need tyrosine in your diet. And you can Google or ChatGPT lists of foods with high tyrosine in them. Doesn't mean you just need to only eat foods with tyrosine. You should eat a balanced diet. but it's important that you have tyrosine in your system in order to make dopamine. Sunlight exposure, especially first thing in the morning, is super important. And then movement and exercise, very, very important. Finding something that you really enjoy doing, like playing basketball or playing football or playing hockey, going for a run, those types of things are going to be helpful in understanding like, these are the things I actually like doing and I want to go do these on a consistent basis. And so that's, the down and dirty of the things you can do to stay motivated. The video that I made that's a lot longer goes into a lot more detail about why and how and what you can do. But I wanted to make this video because I know our attention spans are super short, and I wanted to tell a few stories of how I've stayed motivated. I know that dreaming big and being very consistent with these things are what seems to me to help me stay motivated in my life, because I feel good when I get good sleep. I eat a healthy diet, so I feel pretty good most days. And then when I get sunlight, knowing now that that's super helpful for my dopamine levels and also setting my circadian rhythm and that type of thing, it makes me feel good. And when you feel good, you usually want to do more than when you feel bad or you feel sick or anything like that. So feeling good is part of how to create more dopamine in your body. If you're feeling good, you're probably going to want to do more. And movement is huge when it comes to dopamine. And these are the kind of the three things that I'll tell a couple stories to end this out. But when I was younger in my 20s, or ever since I was little, I wanted to be in the Olympics for some reason. I remember going to the 1996 Atlanta Olympics and watching wrestling. And I was like, man, I want to be in the Olympics so bad. And then I don't know. It was something that I wanted to reach the peak for my athletic performance, because I think I had a lot of drivers and motivation to do well in sports. And I was a really good wrestler, but wrestling was something that I didn't enjoy too much, but I was really, really good at. And I ended up winning. I wanted to be a 4-time state champion in high school. And my older brother was a 3-time state champion. So at the time he was a 2-time. And so my freshman year, I was like, I got to win state. And I ended up getting 5th. And then my sophomore year, I got 3rd. My junior year, I got 2nd. And then my senior year, I actually won. I got 1st. But it was definitely something where I think I dreamed pretty big and I put these high goals in my life. And so I strive to meet those goals, and it takes a long time to kind of meet the goals that I'm trying to achieve. And one other thing that I think helps me stay motivated is I try not to dwell too much on something that's bad that happens to me. And what I mean by that is, or if something doesn't go my way. So like my freshman year when I got 5th and I didn't get 1st, my whole dream of winning 4 state championships was gone. But about a week or 2 later, I went and started playing baseball. And so I didn't really have time to dwell on that. And I remember a story by Graham Weaver when he said that he lost his sectional or conference title, and he didn't wrestle for the rest of his high school career. And I was like, man, I wonder if I wouldn't have gone to play baseball, if I would have just sat and sulked and stuff like that, if that would have been me too. But my parents were definitely in the camp of pushing me to do more in sports and always do fun and good things and always stay active. So I think that was a big contributor to why, when things don't go your way, my dad has a saying of FIDO, forget it and drive on. And you don't necessarily forget it completely, but you move on to the next task. And since I played baseball in high school, I couldn't dwell on wrestling too long because I had to be as good as I could at baseball. So I think that's part of it is movement. Activity is so important when it comes to dopamine production and motivation, but also having these little steps along the way to say how'd I do? Okay, I got to assess that and then go to the next thing and keep on pressing on. Okay. And keep doing hard things. So that's it. That was even almost 10 minutes, but I feel like I had to tell a couple stories. And now my tough thing that I do on a daily basis is trying to grow fly bodies. I'll give you a quick example of that is most days I am holding my hand like a phone, because most days I spend 2 to 3 to 4 hours on the phone calling people at this point in time to try to get them to become customers of fly bodies. And I would say 70 to 80% of the time, I don't even get to talk to anybody. I just talk to an answer machine. And then 10 to 20% of the time, when I do get to talk to somebody, they're like, oh, maybe send us some stuff. And then, 5% of the time, somebody's like, this sounds awesome. Please, send us more stuff and we may want to do this. And what I'll say about that is just making those calls is building the muscle for me to say like, this is part of building a great company. And I've heard so many things and so many people talk about like, you've got to make 100 phone calls before you even get semi good at doing it. And it makes sense because as I'm making these phone calls, my pitch gets better. I'm able to answer questions better. I'm able to give more valuable information. I'm able to navigate questions that people ask me a lot better. So in the beginning, I would talk so much in the beginning instead of asking questions and hearing what they had to say and asking them what they already did. And then I'm starting to realize it's like, okay, there's a great way to be able to sell a wellness initiative to an HR director or a head of school or alumni relations person. Anyways, that's it. It just takes reps and it keep on pushing through, keep that momentum. Don't do anything that's so big or out of whack that it takes you out of the game, because it's a long process. And that's how you stay motivated. Do those 5 things on a consistent basis, refine those things and get better at those things day to day. They're not going to be perfect. You're not always going to get a great night's sleep. You're not going to have the perfect diet. It's not always going to be sunny outside. You're not always going to get to do the workout you want to do. So just keep that in mind as well. That's all I got, guys. Hopefully that's helpful, and get after it.